The podcast that you're about to listen to does not care about your emotions, your hypersensitivity, or your political correctness. If you wish to continue, then
shut up and sit down.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Alpha 5 podcast. I'm Frank, a.k.a. PJ, here with Fabian, John, Jonah, and we got a real special guest for y'all today, Dougie Cash, joining us. Producer of To All the Boys I've Loved Before, out on Netflix, Cobra Kai, which was on YouTube, now on Netflix, and also the film Sprinter. Dougie, what's going on, man? We appreciate you being here. It's good to have you, bro.
Thanks for having me. Obviously, I'm a big fan. John is my brother-in-law. You know, I'm biased. But if I may, I just want to say the thoughts and views expressed by those of the Alpha 5 podcast hosts and not necessarily those of Dougie Cash. All right, let's get to it.
I respect it.
You did all that shit, bro.
Man.
Talk to you, my nigga.
Yeah.
Yo,
he's kind of a big deal.
He's an accomplished guy.
That's some serious shit right there.
Yeah, he's worked very hard to get where he's at. So it's mad respect because he's had dreams since we were younger and he's realizing them now. So definitely,
hats off, cuz hats off.
Yeah, Doug's definitely made moves. John, Fabian, and I have known Doug for quite a long time. We've seen him work his ass off to get where he's at.
We actually had our first jobs as teenagers together at McDonald's.
Yep, that is absolutely true. That is 1,000% true. The four of us.
Listen,
making $8 an hour.
I got
you got that much? I was getting $750.
Man, well, you're
Listen, I mean, you want to take it back? I got some like 13-year-old birthday pictures from like John looking like John looking like he came out the cornfields. Like I still got them. Like my man looked like he just finished picking some cotton. He had the do-rag and the overalls and shit.
We're going right back to that, right? Oh, it's some racist shit. Racist shit. Oh man, Jesus Christ!
Why is it racist? Why is that? Racist?
Why does it have to be cotton picking? Why can't it be cow raising?
You said.
I mean, were y'all allowed to do that?
Jesus Christ!
Jesus Christ, dude! I mean, you took it there.
Those Alpha 5 podcast hosts and not necessarily.
He opened the door, man. You opened that door. I wasn't going there.
I ain't opened shit. You said
it's what came up first. It's just what came up.
I dig it, bro. Let's go. Let's get into it. Jesus H. Christ.
Oh man. Man, you made me lose my whole train of thought. You know what? No. Speaking, it's good you brought it up because what we wanted to actually talk about was like the whole black on black perspective, for lack of a better way of saying it, right? And one stereotype that I just obviously mentioned was the whole slave aspect to it. But in present times, like there's really a debate that goes on as to what being black means, especially in black communities now, right? Mm-hmm. And as men of color, I think we really can have a pretty decent debate on that because I know factually that we don't all see eye to eye on it.
Yeah, we definitely don't.
No. So John identifies as black. Jonah identifies as black. Dougie, you identify as black?
Absolutely.
All right. Fabian, do you?
Oh, I identify as Latino.
Okay, and I don't identify as black. But see, then
we gotta get to the origins of this shit.
Now we got beef.
Right off the bat.
Yeah, we gotta get to the origins of the shit.
All right, so Jonah, lead it off. What's your problem, son?
What does it mean to be black to you? Is really the question.
What it means to be black to me?
Because you say Fabian is Latino, and I'm sure PJ says he's the same thing. You would technically be categorized as that.
As Latino.
But you black.
Yeah, well, all right. So for me personally, had you asked me this question pre everything that's going on right now, I would have sided with Frank and PJ saying I'm Latino, that I'm straight up Dominican. I'm not. Not that I was against being black, but it's just I wasn't black. Like I speak Spanish and I'm a Spanish culture, right? But as when all this shit, started happening about, I mean, growing up in the hood, you understood that cops abused us and beat the Spanish and black people up, and white people got away with shit. We knew that. That was just something that was given. But now as it coming up into the forefront, it's also like I've learned or continue to learn more about Black history and its origin. And me saying that I'm Dominican, in certain aspects, I'm pretty much saying that I'm better than a Black person because I'm saying I'm Dominican. When in fact, especially being Dominican, I am Black because the first set of slaves settled in Dominican Republic. You follow what I'm saying?
So if anybody's black, it would be you.
Right. So I can't sit here and say, yo, nah, I'm not black. I'm Dominican. Like, nah, bro, I'm black. Like,
wait, but why does being Dominican automatically make you better than a black person?
I don't
that you lost me right, like jump on that.
Well, because if you've been around enough Dominican people, you'll know that Dominican people don't like black people. For example,
but that's their perspective, though. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't give an automatic pass.
Nah, it's not, man. Because if you go to DR hate Haitians. The Dominican people, my skin complexion, if not darker, would look at a Haitian person and say, "Yo, you are ugly as shit. I hate you people. I hate you guys with a fucking passion." And they're black as a motherfucker. Both Dominicans and the Haitian person will both be black. Black as night. And the Dominican person will say, "No, I'm better than you."
But that's a Dominican Republic problem.
Yeah, that's not. Because if you go to Ricans and stuff like that, they don't see that with
but
they also don't see their blackness.
That culture
is not necessarily inaccurate. The part of the Bronx and the Grand Concourse where I lived, the community where it was African American, right? And then if you walked right up the hill where I went to get my barbershop, it was a Dominican gentleman, who used to cut my hair. And they used to give me the dirtiest, meanest looks you can think of, right? And, I have a very diverse group of friends. And, they tell me personally, like, yeah, we don't necessarily rock with black people. I never really got into the minutia of it all, but, I think there is some validity to what he's saying. I think that the question is why. I have no answer to that. I have no clue.
Well, I think I have the answer to that.
Well, I think I have the answer to that, man. And I mean, it may not be the correct one, but in my opinion, the answer to it is because of Spain and Spaniards who also settled, brought the slaves over to DR, and pretty much Dominicans have this Spaniard culture. And if we know anything about Europe, they're racist as a motherfucker, especially people from Spain. They don't like any other Spanish culture, period. If you're not Spain, you ain't Spanish. You follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of why, at least in my opinion, why the Dominican people don't like black people, because of that origin, right? My father's one of them. My father will sit there. He'll sit there and, for example, my niece's school, right? She gets into trouble, and when she was going to school, she gets into trouble, and she was being accused of being like a troubled kid, right? My father hears this, and the first thing it says is, "Oh, it's the black kids in school, man. They from the hood, and they don't know how to act. They act wild, and this and the third." And I'll be looking at him like, "Come on, bro. Like, for real? Why would you sit there and say something like that? You know what I mean? Like, that makes no sense for you to sit there and just accuse the black kid of being the ones that's misleading and teaching my niece right from wrong. Why couldn't it be the white kid that's in the school? You know what I'm saying?"
I always thought it's because we take, like we just kind of swaggy, if you will, and just Dominican women love us. I thought that was why, but I don't believe that in my own ignorance.
Nah, listen, bro. You might not be wrong.
You might not be wrong. You might not be wrong.
There's a theory.
What does it mean? What does it mean to be black to you guys?
To me, it's a cultural thing. Like that, the same thing as what it means to me to be Hispanic. It's more about it's a cultural thing. It's an upbringing. It's a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? It's no different than how white people got a certain vibe to them, a certain upbringing, right? That, like, for lack of a better way of saying it, you think of the stereotypical white guy, you're probably going to think of somebody that surfs or somebody that skateboards. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that's either wearing boating shoes or really preppy, for lack of a better way of saying it. You know what I mean? There's associations that automatically are involved. But even if you look beyond that to the cultural aspect, you know what I'm saying? I'm not eating grits. I'm having rice and beans. You know what I mean? I'm having farina for breakfast. You know what I'm saying? Like, culturally, there's a lot more involved that is, in my opinion, categorically different than how a black child is raised or a black family operates.
I think we have more in common than you think. As far
I'm not
as how
saying
you,
I'm not saying we don't. I'm not saying we don't, though. That's the thing. But to call myself black there would be less difference, in my opinion.
I guess what I'm saying is most of what you think is Hispanic culture is really black culture with a language attached to it. Is my point. So even down to the food and the music that you listen to, the salsa and all that all comes from like Africa, like all of it. And so there's blackness in it because of where it comes from. It's the same way that rock and roll.
I don't deny I have a black heritage. I don't deny I have a black heritage. I won't discount that, but I feel like I'm 100% Puerto Rican. So I feel like those people on the island, that the blends of those different cultures, those different backgrounds, spawned something different, unique. They pulled certain things out of each one, and made their own. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think I have to identify with my root, let's say, to have that validity. No,
I get it, and it is a lot that was pulled from different parts. Well, what I was saying is most of it is like African culture, like more than 60% of what you think is Hispanic culture is Hispanic culture, but it's mostly African mixed with the colonizers that raped and pillaged and did all of that stuff to y'all. Like, to me, what it means to be black, right? It used to mean going to church on Sundays, everybody eat. You're laughing, but this is how it's formed.
I'm laughing because I remember these things.
Yeah, well, this is in my life. This is what most black people did. Dougie's too, right? That's part of the black experience. Can't talk back to your parents, and you can't talk about your mental health, and there's always certain things, right, that are connected to being black. We are not supposed to like gay people. We're not supposed to do any of this stuff. If you smart, is frowned upon, right? And so this is what it means to be black. Up until recently, up until 2000, it was a negative mind state. Is that's what blackness is, because that's what blackness has always been, right? Forever, it has never been. It was never supposed to be positive. It was always looked at as negative, and so that's kind of when everybody in the country is a slave, right? For however long, every black family mostly was slaves. And so they all had a monolithic way of being because they were made to be all the same. They were all slaves, right? So if you go a couple of generations down, black people haven't really strayed too far away from it. We started as a monolith because that's how we were supposed to be. And that's why when you get comments like, you're not black if you vote for Donald Trump, right? Is because people are used to black people thinking and acting in a monolithic way. All black people are the same. And now that as we become more educated, you're starting to see black Republicans. You're starting to see black this, black that. We're starting to see that black people are really more diverse, right? And that's not because we were always diverse. It's actually quite the opposite. We weren't diverse. Even back then, it wasn't really because we weren't made to be. But now you're starting to see what it means to be black is really, to me, is about strength, right? Because I don't know no other culture that has to deal with the elongated oppression that black people have had to deal with and still want to hug their neighbors and still want peace with their neighbors. I haven't seen that. And so for me, what it means to be black is not about crime. It's not about wearing your pants down low and listening to rap music. It's about being strong. That's what it means to me. So I don't know what you guys take on it is.
Fabe, where you at? So you've been absorbing it all.
Yeah, no, because it's actually a very interesting topic because, well, first, we've always come across this because we all know the history of PR, which is where, if nobody doesn't know out there, that's where my family's from. So Puerto Rico. There's no denying the roots that come from Africa, especially being part of the slave trade, PR being one of the stops to go to the colonies. So when you look at the history, the first thing we look at is culture versus race. Some people see black as being just a race. Other people see black as a culture. So it depends which way you look at it. If you look at it as a race, then you could say the majority of people on this planet are black, right? Because of where their DNA lies, where their DNA lies. Obviously, we all came from Africa.
Frank
right?
don't like
but
that.
if you're looking at it as a culture,
Well, it's not that I don't like it. It's just like
then that's where you differ. Like,
Why
so for
is
me,
there
for
such
example,
go ahead. I ain't gonna cut you off.
So for me, I don't know. I did my ancestry or something like that, and I got like 15% from like the Ivory Coast and Ghana and stuff like that, and then the rest of it is mixed with Native American and Spaniard. Actually, probably more Native American than anything, because of the Indians that were indigenous to Puerto Rico before the colonizers came over, the original oppressors, the Spanish, which everybody loves to speak their language. By the way, and like to demonize everybody that doesn't speak freaking Spanish, but oh yeah, you're speaking the language of original oppressors. How do you feel? But anyways, I won't even get into that part. But
threw his own tangent in there. Like.
I'm sorry, I had to. But anyways, so that's what it means to me, because when you look at it, and I look at, because I know that I've heard some people that went to actually Africa, right? And people that are black here that go to Africa are looked at a certain way, and they share the same skin color, even if not dark. So it couldn't be. Is that a race thing, or is that a culture thing? They're like you because you're this type of black or that type of black. So how can we say it's a race thing when people are treating each other differently? Same thing with
I think that's
like
anecdotal,
Jonah talked
bro.
But like the Dominicans, it's the same skin color, but because one side speaks this language, one side speaks that language, and in two separate countries on the same island, they're at war with each other.
But you can't deny that people will treat you like a nigger just by looking at you before they know your culture or where you from. Y'all, police, when white people see y'all look like niggas too. Like,
I know
they don't know your culture until they interact with you. So I guess
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, because I look at you and I see black. I look at Jonah, I see Dominican. I look at Fabian, I see Puerto Rican. Aside from knowing them, most Spanish people can identify the origins of that Spanish person the same way that you can look at another black guy, right, and legitimately say that
I know he's black, but I couldn't tell you where, or I could just tell you he's slave black.
But what I'm saying
not
is
African.
But what I'm saying is, if you put majority of black guys, right, that are genuinely African American next to Jonah will stand out as Dominican.
But people think I'm Dominican. I get Dominican all the time.
That's why I say that there's a difference, you know. But I find it interesting, like,
yo, you know what though? My fault, Frank. I'm in control, but
I want to get Dougie here. I want to hear his thoughts too.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because I've been told most of my life that I'm black. Everybody thinks that I'm black.
We have friends that I didn't know was Dominican until like a couple of years ago.
It might be really a lack of education on their part.
Honestly, I'll tell you what I really think it is. I think there is an aura of anti-blackness in the world. It ain't just in America. It's in South America. It's in Europe. It's all over. And nobody wants to be black, but everybody wants to be black.
Not for nothing. I found it interesting. I don't know if it was you or Fabian that said it. Was like, one of you said, "What kind of black are you?" Is it a matter of what kind of black are you? And I find that interesting, because one thing that actually Doug had mentioned prior to us starting was, like, in in our black communities, if you don't think certain ways or have certain viewpoints, right? Like, let's say if you're not a Democrat, if you do like Trump, right, you're considered an Uncle Tom. Or if you're not for, the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Like, you're looked at a certain way.
That's true.
And
I kind of unfortunately agree with it.
No,
To a certain
think
extent.
I think it was a great point that he made, and a very valid point, especially again with us being to varying degrees considered part of that community. I think we've all faced that reality.
Yeah. Oh, I've been told I'm not black enough by family members, by friends, by white people, which is hilarious.
Well, why do we do that? I because it's one thing that has resonated with me, and I do have like a viewpoint towards it, but I don't know. I'm wondering where you guys are with it.
Well, I want to hear from Doug. I want to hear Doug's thoughts.
I mean, look,
you can ask a question.
Because I think all of you guys sort of alluded to, certain interesting points and sort of how you guys resonate with your race or culture. I think Frank said something interesting, which is, you have the cultural aspect of it, and then you have the lifestyle, which I think, I mean, John would know this, but I grew up. So what? First of all, what does it mean to be black to me? Resilient. Period. Point blank. One word. That's all I could think of.
That's the word I was trying to find before.
I don't think I necessarily have to dive into the micro of it all, but I just think resilient. One of my friends, and one of my friends asked me before, does being black define you? And I said, no. Being a good person does, and hopefully the works I do and my contribution to society is what defines me.
Strong.
One of the, but Frank, what you said was very interesting, right? Because it's like, I grew up, I'm one of 7, same 2 parents. My mother's very light skinned. My father is darker skinned. And, I feel like me, all of my siblings are different shades and colors. And, I feel like I'm ethnically ambiguous, to most people. And I think I grew up super sheltered and in church in the hood of the Bronx before we moved upstate. And I couldn't tell you a damn thing about the lifestyle of being black or the culture, if that makes sense, right? I just knew that, I'm a black man, but my parents always raised us to believe in God. I never actually saw color, interestingly enough, until I moved upstate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I lived in Parkchester, the Parkchester in the Bronx, I had white friends I went to school with, Latin friends, black friends, it was very Indian friends. It was very diverse, but I didn't realize how different it was until I moved to Monroe, New York, and my first day in 6th grade, being one of the first black, and I'm light skinned, right? But it's just something that was instant.
That's what I was saying before.
The way they speak, the clothes they wear, it's different. And then that's when sort of you go through, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but you're like, whoa. And I think that's when you start noticing certain things.
It's crazy that you mentioned that, because I went through the same exact thing around 6th grade, first day of school in Monroe. I got called all types of niggers, and kids tried to jump me. And then I did go through an identity crisis for a while. You couldn't tell me I wasn't a Puerto Rican because I have 2 best friends that's Puerto Rican, and I had but I had nothing else to latch on to, right? I didn't know, I wasn't aware of my blackness until, unfortunately, some kids made me aware of my blackness. Because I was always in diverse areas where, again, like Doug, I had white friends, I had Spanish friends, black friends, I had all types. I just had friends. Didn't really occur to me that they looked different. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until I was told, oh, your nose, or you got light eyes for a black dude, or like, what? Like, what's going on here? And so it kind of, now I have to fit in somewhere, because I'm not necessarily not fitting in here because they're telling me, yo, you're different. And so there is a huge identity crisis.
I hate to say it though, but we feed off, right, our experiences naturally. But I've also heard stories of those diverse areas like the Bronx, right? I don't know if demonizing is the word, but damn, I can't think of the word, but
Vilifying.
do it. Thank you. People of the same color, the exact same way that we'd experience, right?
Mhm.
But black to black, Spanish to Spanish, for the lack of conformity.
Okay,
You know,
I get what you're saying.
And I've never really understood why we do that. Like why culturally we do that.
Why we what?
Eh,
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Why we vilify people within our culture, our cultures, for the lack of or for having a different opinion, for not
I think
agreeing or going with that conformity.
honestly, I think there is a lack of understanding. Period. Point blank. I think that's the most simplistic way to put it. You treat others by what you know. So if you are closed-minded, that's all you know. It's the same reason why. Look, growing up, when I got my first job at McDonald's, which are 14, I'm one of 7. That's the first time me making my own money. I got a check for $87. I thought I was rich. I remember my mom.
I
So
remember those days.
I remember my mom driving me to pick up my first paycheck, and I opened it. My eyes were like light bulbs. I'm like, Mom, whatever you need. Like, it's like,
I hear that.
You want a new car? I got you.
right?
Give me like 2 weeks.
But I used to, it's like, my father worked hard, 7 kids. He provided a great, life for us. But, 7 kids, it's not the same as if you have 2 or 3. So I would go to Walmart, which I think the Walmart in town had just opened around that time. And, I would buy some clothes that I thought was dope. And I think Starter used to be like a cool brand. And then Walmart not really cool anymore. But I remember I was buying some stuff from there. And I remember I went to school, thought I was swaggy. I found out I wasn't. But it wasn't even, it wasn't white people who were doing it. It was our own people.
Right.
And it's like, as I get older, as a I don't want to say my age. I don't like saying my age because I'm insecure about it. But as a
25-year-old
man, I realized that, it's just a cycle that we condition or precondition since young is to hate on each other.
Mm-hmm.
When 9 times out of 10, you're in the same economic, social situation and environment as the person you're criticizing and making fun of, so we have to deprogram ourselves, you criticize, you do what you know.
I'm glad I wasn't the one to say it, because it's been one of the biggest issues I've had, and that I felt I've seen more. I feel more in the Black community, but even amongst the Hispanic community as well, where like we don't do enough to lift each other up. We shit on each other too much. We don't pay attention to the right things and glorify the right things. Like we create an atmosphere of
beef,
of just conflict, and the lack of acceptance within our own communities is to such a degree. And then we cry out when other people don't accept us, and that's really such a mind-boggling aspect to me, because like I'm a firm believer of before you can love anybody or anything, you need to love yourself. Like,
man, but you gotta hold on to that right there, man, because history has shown us, at least for the Black and Spanish community, that's something that was never taught to us. Like we're going back to our slave roots. The people that were outside picking cotton and all that hated the people in the kitchen that was inside.
It was by design.
And vice versa. Design. Right. This is something that's been instilled in us for decades.
All right.
Now hold on a second. I'm not saying that that's right. Like I'm not saying that we should be carrying this to this very day and age.
Oh, you breaking up, Jonah?
But it's man. It goes back to what Dougie was saying, man. Like this was something that's taught to us from way back when.
Yeah, but all right, but
I would have to agree with disagree with you that, because I know that actually was the case when they're on the plantation. That's fact. And they still portray certain individuals that think a certain way as the house N-words because, you know, they have a certain mentality.
Right.
But I think that was only for a certain, I guess a certain group within the community, because you can't say that and then have a place like Black Wall Street happen where they're lifting each other up. So that's not inherent in all people of color, especially Black folks. They have a good history of trying to lift each other up. Then there's a small actual, I think it's probably a smaller percentage that actually are just haters. And that's a human nature thing, right? Because anybody could be haters. Latinos would hate on me because I wasn't wearing the newest Air Force Ones, right? Or I wasn't doing this and I wasn't doing that. I wasn't wearing the right type of brand of clothing. Even people that are white, they hate on each other for different reasons. Oh, you ain't got this, or you don't have that gun. Oh, your mom bought you that car. Well, I got this, and you know, there's always that going on. So I think that's inherent in just in human beings in general. But
That's not everybody that do that though.
I don't know, man.
but people,
I don't-
I never
but
seen
people,
Asians do that in America. I never seen the Jews do it to another Jew. I
Well,
never
there's a
see that.
difference, too. There's a difference too between having just bad style, you know. I think there's a difference. And then, you know, hating and then just being conditioned to. I didn't say inherit because I don't think you're born like that.
Yeah.
But I do think where you're born matters. If you're born into poverty
100%.
and if you're born into poverty, like look, you know, as a Black person, we're all people of color, right? If four of the five of us were born in the suburbs, not a part of the quote unquote have-nots, you're probably, I guess it's logical to say it's less likely that aspect of critiquing and criticizing is going to happen. Now, if you have on whack sneakers, I guess that's subjective, as a matter of taste, right? But if you're born into poverty and you're being pumped and conditioned to believe that you're less than, you aren't, for lack of a better word, shit, and you don't have anything, you know, and you know, it's like that's just naturally going to happen, right? Especially when you start getting older, and then like you may be able to get Jordans on and all the fly stuff, and then I'm pulling up in Team Jordan and be like, what is that bullshit you wear? That ain't real, right? It's just how we are conditioned where we are birthed, and you can't control that. And that's why and I'm sorry, I know this is long-winded, guys. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But that's why I'm a firm believer. Look, I don't mind being the guy that sort of is, you know, I could be in a room with 100 people. I don't mind being the guy that speaks up and speaks out. I think, look, when we become of a certain mature state of mind, it is our duty, it is our obligation to go back and now reverse engineer the way of thinking of our younger relatives or our younger friends. And a lot of times we don't do that. You know, ignorance is bliss, as they say. You know, I think John knows me well. You know, it's like I wasn't always this beacon of whatever, but I've always tried to be a good person. But as I've matured, as I've gotten older, I desperately tried to break the mold and the stereotype of what we quote unquote are as people of color.
I think that's
Sorry, that
kind of
was
what I was
dope.
alluding
That
to
was dope.
before. Like we don't go out of our way enough to do what you're trying to do. You know, I feel we perpetuate the cycle too much. You know, we do things, we do a lot of stereotypical things and then complain about them after the fact, which doesn't make it just doesn't make sense.
Capitalism. It's another conversation, though.
Yeah,
I mean, it
all ties together.
It's part of it, but like, I feel like within our communities, right, it's so much easier to blame X, Y, or Z rather than try and master and overcome X, Y, and Z. We rather succumb to it than overcome it. And that's a problem. Like,
That's deep.
No,
you're right.
That's really what it feels like. Look, my wife's a teacher, and she teaches in a predominantly Black and Spanish area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, through this whole pandemic shit, and they were doing the distance learning thing, and blah 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 blah. She teaches a bilingual class, and she had an amazingly hard time getting these kids to log in to take care of their assignments for multiple reasons. Mom and dad didn't know how, didn't want to be bothered, right?
Mm-hmm.
couldn't say that they didn't have the supplies because the school was giving them out.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yet she also has students that when they were in school were showing up with the dopest, flyest Jordans out there, which they, like your kid
Priorities
may
is fucked up.
your kid may look and smell like Rico Suave right now, but guess what? He got a D in math.
But you know
Math.
what, Frank? Frank, I think the way look, yeah, these are just my opinions, and I'm always open to say I could be wrong. I'm always open to learning and sort of being proven wrong. But a lot of that has to do with it's like, look, in our community, just from what I remember, granted, this is 20 plus years ago. There wasn't a big emphasis on education because we had so many other things we were dealing with. How are we going to put food on the table? How are we going to keep the lights on? How are we going to pay rent? How am I going to walk from home to school without being jumped or being, there were a lot of things at play, so the one thing you could kind of control is like, can I get fresh? Can I get fly? Like, a lot of times I think the mentality is I'm not even going to make it to C18. That's sort of what we always hear. And then look, I hate to talk about it. A lot of rappers are my friends, but I hate to be the guy to bring it up. I think the hip hop culture, certain elements
it
within
affects it.
It's like as I've gotten older, I'm able to differentiate the difference between reality and fiction. It's not real. But there are people who don't, and they hold on to that. And these hip hop artists carry that ignorance due to capitalism, right? Capitalist country, into their 40s. And it's like, my brother, on one hand, you can't be talking about Black Power, stop shooting us, hands up, don't shoot. But then in the next, you're wearing not snitching as a badge of honor, and it doesn't make sense. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, at some point, we have to make the conscious decision. Are we going to forego capitalism to empower our people to be better, do better, right? So we can see change. I think
sometimes
it's a matter. I think there's a little bit of I see what you're seeing, Dougie, but I'm sorry, PJ. There's a little bit of a perversion of the term capitalism. We're starting to see that a lot more recently, because you acquire things or you have a tremendous amount of wealth that almost by default equates to the definition of capitalism. Although that is part of it, I think we're mixing two things here. There's actually probably, I think, no other system that would be better than that to actually help our people, because it's one of the few systems that we could become a have not to a have in the same lifetime. There ain't no case system like you have in other countries.
On paper, what I mean? You're right, but it hasn't happened, so it can't.
John, you just started a business with your wife like that, and if it picks up tomorrow, screw capitalism. No, that is capitalism. The fruits of your labor are yours. There's a supply and demand situation. It gets very basic like that. Now you have
there's a certain level of greed that goes with it. There's a certain level of greed that goes with it.
There's also a glass ceiling there too.
But that's human nature too. You got to factor in how people are with each other and with the way they think. So they'll use capitalism. So like, see, me, I think everybody kind of knows me by now. If I had money like that, everybody be eating, because that's my personality. So give me the money that I need. That's why I like capitalism. Give me the opportunity to get to that height.
But not everybody has what you have, Fabian.
No, exactly. So that's not capitalism. So if you're greedy, that's not capitalism.
We're not saying okay. That's a fair point. But the idea being is like, we try to make money off of everything, whether good or bad, right? So that's really what I'm saying. And then to what John said, it's like, at what point are you being greedy and not having morals? It's like these guys in your 30s,
sell your soul.
And not all of them, but it's like, I have $10 million. Why do I still need to rap about that? That's why I love Jay-Z. Like, Jay-Z's 445 album was so that was some grown man rap. And guess what? In one ear and out the other. Kids ain't really listen to that.
Well, because they're not old. They're not old enough to understand what's being told, and that's kind of like trying to get a 16-year-old to understand rocket science. It's like it's not going to happen.
But to what? But some of it does fall down to what's happening in the background. Like, my sister's 10 years younger than I am, right? And she can recite all of the songs, right, that we came up with on this podcast. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because she was exposed to them. Because she was sitting in the back seat while I was jamming down the street. You know what I mean?
Those days.
Right. So like, yeah, the kids may not at the time when it was released have been able to comprehend it, but if the parents were paying attention and were exposing them, then eventually the words come back to you, the understanding can come back to you. That especially when the song comes on at a later date, you're like, oh shit, I didn't get that shit at the time. Like I never forget it. That what was it? I think it's is it Country Grammar? No, the Nelly shit where he's like, I'm going down, down, baby.
Yeah,
Your
Country
street and
Grammar,
Yeah,
Country
you're
Grammar.
right.
Huge record.
Yeah, but I had no idea what he was saying when that song came out.
Neither did I.
I jammed like a mofo to like, all right, that's fine. But see, but I had no idea.
But I had older influences.
My wife is who put me on, and all of a sudden I sat there, and I'm talking like 5 years ago. I'm not even talking about like a long time ago, but because I never put any thought to it. I just jammed out with the song. I bopped with it. That was it. And then all of a sudden
Maybe
I
it's
said,
a good.
oh damn.
Hey, you doing my
I can't play this.
Yeah.
What? What?
You
know
never
what
listened to
I'm saying?
Eminem
Like-
as a kid, bro?
I mean, that's a little different. He was a little bit more forward. It wasn't so.
subtle, right?
Yeah, it wasn't innuendo. It was just like, yo.
Yeah. But go ahead, Fabe. Go ahead.
So, it's interesting that Dougie was mentioning that too, and it's something that I've always thought about for the longest time when it comes to the music industry. We don't see it as kids, just like PJ was saying. You hear that you vibing out to the song, you like it, you don't really know what they're talking about, but it's that subliminal hit that you're getting. For instance, everybody on there, and I think this is a little bit deeper than this. We talk about design, John. I'm a firm believer there's systemic racism and design, especially, but we glorify the same industry that's actually perpetuating that. For instance, I won't put Dougie in the spot because he's over there, and I'm not gonna ask him the questions, but I have this feeling, right? And it's not even a feeling, I truly believe they're coming out with music that glorifies violence, that harm on others, drugs, you name it, even drugs, violence, having the freshest stuff, spend. Don't invest. Don't do anything that's going to actually help you out. It's always some sort of negative, connotation, but they're glorifying it, right? But I'm pretty sure there's a couple people in that industry that wanted to talk about a certain topic. They want to talk about God. I mean, Kanye said it before. Talk about God, I won't get paid. The people at the top are going to be like, nah, we don't want you to put that type of shit out. No, talk about Percocets and hoes.
But you understand
You know
that that applies to every form of entertainment that it applies to your video games, it applies to your movies as well.
I get
Passion of the Christ had a hard time coming out. Like they didn't really want it goes. You can't blame the kids for making sometimes you can either take it for real, right? For what these kids are saying, or you can take it for the art that it is, like you would a Rocky movie.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't teach that the music is fantasy to our youth. We only teach that the movies is fantasy and the video games is fantasy. But we don't teach that the music is fantasy. We actually glorify it if it's not fantasy. The more real your raps are that you do, the more respect you gain. You understand?
But at the same time, you also have these rappers coming out, though, talking about that they've done this or lived these lives, though. So it gets very hard on the back end to talk about something being fantasy when the person singing about the supposed fantasy is saying, nah, that really happened.
Yeah, I came from this block. I did this, and they want to talk about that.
Real.
They're portraying a certain message, and they want only a certain message to get out there. That's my true belief.
Jay-Z lost 92 bricks. That's real.
No, but Fabi, I think what you're saying, so here's how I feel. Look, I don't work in the film industry. It's just me being, this is just how I personally feel about it. It's, when you're young and you're coming from poverty, it's like, get on how you got to get on. As long as you're not hurting anybody physically, I get it, right? So you got to get money, right? You got to eat.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, as you start to grow and get older and mature, and obviously there's no better way than mature and learn and grow and evolve than seeing the world, getting out of your circumference or your where you live. But here's the thing. This country foundation is violence. So it's like we naturally, as a society, gravitate towards violence. Now, I'm sure that there's a documentary Jay-Z did when he was putting together the Black Album. And I forget the artist name who was in the studio, and he was conversing with Jay-Z, and he was like, yo, sometimes I don't want to be rapping about this stuff, but no one's going to listen otherwise, right? It's like, we can't necessarily blame the powers that be, because if everyone was making Kumbaya, I love Jesus, let's hold hands, show love type music, no one's buying it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, we have to place some blame on the consumer. But, I think there are more macro conversations to be had, like private prisons. Is there a correlation between private prisons and then the same type of music that is continually being played on the airways that, is affecting a specific community that is, sort of conditioning us to act violent towards each other, to feel
Poison.
prisons? It doesn't become a problem, like Eminem said, Middle America, now it's a tragedy. Now it's so sad to see when you start seeing people caring, right? That's
well,
why
the drug problem wasn't a drug problem
right
until kids in Middle America started getting used.
And that's
heroin.
why I always say it's like
before that it wasn't a drug problem. They were criminals,
right? And that's why I always say I have no problem with you making whatever kind of music you want. However, you have to balance. You have to say, look, kids, this is entertainment.
But it's all about a message. You know what I mean? Because I know I listen to it and I hear it. I mean, I see certain signs, especially coming from somebody that is starting to believe in God a little bit more than ever. I start to see certain signs when you get to be a little woke like that. I hear music and I hear lyrics. I'm like, damn, he's talking about some real. It didn't sit right spiritually. You don't feel it. You start to pick up on stuff like that, and I see that a lot. And most people are naive to that, or they want ignorance is bliss, or they just don't want to believe it, or they're just they're not woke on that level. So I could see a certain type of, and I'm like, damn, he's glorifying this. I'm like, I like the song, but I'm not going to take that into action. I'm not going to truly live by those words or whatever he's saying. And a lot of kids do that. So maybe as adults, we can look back and be like, hey, we're not going to get down with that. But I have a big thing with that. And I understand the powers that be. You can't put all the blame on them too. But like you said, we also have to start from the ground up and tell the kids.
Well, why haven't we never tried to? Why haven't we never had these conversations about Marilyn Manson's music? Like, I feel like we haven't had these
these conversations. Those conversations would be had amongst, for lack of a way of saying it, white America.
Yeah,
because, why? Because Black America don't really fuck with Marilyn Manson.
But what I'm saying is, you heard them because the Columbine kids, they said that they were inspired by his music, whatever, right? You hear them for a little bit in a white community, and then it fades. Eminem didn't stop making music. Eminem didn't stop talking like how he's talking. If you listen to his music, he still has the same content, whether it's good or bad. It's not either here or there, but the content is similar.
A little bit more politically charged now.
But you still don't really hear much about him still calling people faggots, still talking about killing trans people, still talking about doing this and that. And it's like, no, it's fine. But whenever it becomes the Black community that do it, it's not only Black, because other Black people get on Black people about it, but it's like everybody says you shouldn't have a song, fuck the police. Everybody says your group shouldn't be niggas with attitude. And I don't know why we constantly pick on Black people, it feels like.
No, I don't think that's the case at all, because I see a lot of people, like especially growing up here, that could not stand their kids' metal music. They're like, oh, that shit is bad, especially the church-going white families. They're like, yo, what are you listening to that crap in here? We're not down with that. That same mentality has that. It's just we don't see it because it's not our genre or our world in terms of that music.
That's not part of our world, so it's not really fair to say that you don't see anybody else complaining about it when that's not part of your world.
I've literally heard it in
to rock music though.
I understand. No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is you're saying how come you don't see the outrage per se, right? There's not a lot of mainstream pop rock, right? There's not a lot of pop metal going on that you're hearing on most radio stations, right? So like there's a lot of hip hop gets played on these mainstream radio stations. So you have these moms and whatnot running around with their kids and understanding where the bleeps are coming in. You know what I'm saying? So like it's kind of a little bit of a different world.
Not even that, but
no, it's not, because those same moms of those kids they know every lyric to back that ass up. Like, these moms is not our moms. These moms is the hoes we went to school with. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Now, yeah.
A lot of the same
expressed by Jonathan Winston is not necessarily those of them.
Bro, hoes is not. Come on, bro. You need to check out a disclaimer on our show. It's fun. I get to say hoes.
Listen, I gotta sprinkle that thing in every now and then.
I get it. It ain't that serious.
Let me ask you a question. Have y'all ever heard the expression "dress for the position you want"?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Right. So why, at least I feel it's probably the better way to say it. Like we don't teach that. Most, I feel, ethnic communities don't teach that. I feel like most ethnic communities don't teach about generational inheritance. The same way we teach our kids to wipe their asses. Why can't we teach them all this other stuff? Why can't we?
I mean,
Why can't we
we don't know.
inform them?
It-
Why can't we inform them early? That's not a reason.
It
In
depends.
today's
It is
world,
a
that's
reason.
not a
Now it
reason.
is. Not
It's a
now it is.
reason.
In today's world, it's not a reason.
It's not a
In
reason
our,
for me and my
for
kids.
our generation, because information is so accessible. You've learned,
Mhm.
you,
All right.
Jonah, you have learned so much. You're actually the first person to tell us that if we don't know something, go look it up.
You're
You've been
right.
the first.
I agree.
So,
You're right.
So today,
You're
there's
right.
no reason to say we don't know. Figure it out. Learn. I recently started investing.
Yeah.
I
Our parents
I
is the
didn't
last
know what the fuck
generation
I
that
was
could say
doing, but
we
you know
don't
what?
know.
I've been reading. I've been trying to learn. I've been trying to diversify
Frank,
myself.
How did you think to want to learn to start investing? Someone had to put that gem in your mind. You had to see it somewhere because of your network. If you hang out with the same type of person, you're not going to randomly think, hey, I wonder what kind of IRA account I can open. Hey, because you don't think these things. That's why it's
So then
important.
why aren't we asking ourselves that though? Why aren't we surrounding
Because you
ourselves
don't
with
know
the
what you
company?
don't know.
No.
Right.
A lot of people are scared to step out of their comfort zone.
Comfort
I know
zone.
All right,
people
I'll
Hell
give you
yeah.
that.
no white
I'll give you
friends, but they
Yeah.
have everything to say about white people. How does that make sense?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like
You're right.
I,
You're right.
I don't listen, man. It's like, as a 30-year-old man, you see how I
This
beat that
nigga
out.
said,
Yeah,
"30."
catch that.
Gave it away. He just gave it away.
I was like, yo, rewind.
Dave.
Hold on. What did he say?
You
30.
know.
What is
He
that?
said, I thought I was like, yo, what happened to the audio? Like,
Difficulties. But it's just like as I've hit certain points and stages in my life, is I realize there are certain people that I have outgrown. Doesn't mean I don't love them. It doesn't mean I don't want to hang out with them. It just means I outgrown you at this particular stage in my life. And you have to have the courage to say, listen, I love you, but I'm on a different path right now. So, I may be by myself or quiet. And I think people are too scared to be by themselves. It's like they don't have a lot of sayings for no reasons, right? Like the path to success is often alone. And I'm saying it all wrong. But it's just, you guys get the idea of what I'm saying. And I think a lot of times we're just scared to be ourselves. We're scared to step out of our comfort zones and be
there's a
friends
reason for that.
Listen,
like us,
not for nothing. Exactly what you're saying is what happened to John and I. Like we lost touch. I shouldn't say lost touch, but we really didn't communicate like that for what, 8 years, John? Something like that, right? Because I went off to college, right? He moved down south. But a whole lot of shit happened in between. You know what I mean? But then 7 years later, he comes back and it's like a beat wasn't missed, and there was
literally like we didn't miss a day.
There was never any kind of love lost, but it kind of was along those lines, like you mentioned, that we were beating to different drums at the time, and
you gotta do your own thing.
know?
Like you gotta find yourself. You gotta you gotta find your life, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it works.
But you're right, though. People do need to have the courage to branch out, to take the risks, to meet new people and all that. But the first step to fixing a problem is acknowledging a problem. And there's not enough acknowledgement within our communities, I think, like to recognize a problem within ourselves, not the outside world.
No, man, listen. What does the good book tell us? And I say the good book because I was raised in church. So the good book is the Bible for those who don't know what I'm referencing. It says, make sure your house is in order before, you worry about the world. And I think that's a fantastic metaphor for, yes, there are things that need to be changed immediately in society for, people of color, Black and brown people. You know, there are a lot of systemic and systematic things that sort of oppress us, regardless of how people feel. There are things in place that sort of make it harder, but we do have the same opportunities. Neither here nor there. It's a different conversation. But I always tell people, get yourself right first. It's like Gandhi. I have Gandhi as my quote, you know, tattooed on me.
Gandhi hated black people. He hated black people.
But guess what? He can hate black. He can hate black. I don't know him. If he does, I have no idea. But I know he said something that's prophetic. Be the change you wish to see in the world. So I don't care if he hated black people, white people, cows. I don't give a flying finger in the middle. He's like, be the change you wish to see in the world. And we're so quick to
criticize. A flying finger in the middle.
You know,
that was great.
Man, I'm trying to keep it PG, but you know, it's just like we are as people. I think we are so quick to point blame and not fix ourselves. And look, you pointing may be valid. There may be some validity to your accusations or accusings or whatever. I'm using the words incorrectly, but
to your claim, validity to your claim.
Yeah, there may be some validity to your claim, right? But fix yourself first. Get yourself right. So that way we can be in unison, and then we can have sort of be on the same page in unison to really, you know, step foot in foot and make change. But when you give people areas to sort of dissect and break apart, it makes it harder. And I get sick and tired a lot of times of us always saying, but white people, we're talking about us. Stop bringing up white people. You see what I'm saying? It's like it doesn't. But white people kill each other. What does that have to do with us?
Well, you know what they say when you point a finger, you always got three pointing back at you, right?
Yeah, no, it's just.
Jonas has said actually many a time about and spoken about why don't we support each other? Why don't we build each other up? Why are we always shitting on each other? Like it. But then expect to be able to come up after that. It's like within minority communities, so much shit is ass backwards and contradictory to itself. So it's just the thought processes. And you know, I understand where the idea of it being capitalism is the main reasons, but like you just cannot expect to come up as a culture, and we'll just put all minorities together in one basket on this one. You can't expect to come up as a culture when all you're gonna do is hate, like Fabian alluded to, when somebody else gets to come up that you didn't get yet, right? Because just because Doug comes up or Fabian comes up doesn't mean that we won't follow them afterwards, or that they can't support us through our own come up with advice or whatever. And I'm not even speaking on a monetary point, right? But no, so many people want to sit back and go, damn, fuck this nigga Doug. He probably did X, Y, and Z to get where he's at. And it's not even the case.
Listen, you know what?
Right.
You know what?
No, he's just using an example. It's what Jay-Z said. What you eat don't make me shit, right? Like,
honestly, I was intentionally using you, Doug. Because,
no, I'm kidding.
I'm telling you it was intentional. Because very often amongst a group, right, the person that is considered most successful is the one that will get the most hate.
I should not cover.
That's usually the truth. Look at Trump.
You know what? I'm gonna say this because you know what? Everybody brought up a couple good points, and I just thought about it. We can have theories about where it stems from, our hate on one another, whether it's capitalism, where it's systemic by white folks, like Jonah said. But I don't see how anything has to do with that, especially my personal experience, when literally family members hate on each other just because they wanted to move from one part of the state to another. Oh, I want to move my family out the city. I want to be here more. Oh, wait, you think you're better than everybody else? That has nothing to do with capitalism. That has nothing to do with that is something in us, and we got to take accountability for shit like that. Because that happens amongst our own family members. Oh, you think you're better than us because you're moving out the state, but moving out the city? No, because I want to give my kids a better education. You know, I see something, I'm learning something. I think this is not the best.
They did it to my pops.
So that is inherent in us. We got to take some self accountability when it comes to that shit.
Yo, how
And Fabian.
John, Doug, and Fabian can probably appreciate the reference. How many times have you guys been told that you live upstate with the rich people?
Oh,
Yeah,
Like
I don't have enough numbers.
especially whenever you were in the Bronx or something like that. Not
Yeah.
knowing
Oh, I
nothing
don't
about
have
your
enough numbers.
situation.
Yeah, I say that shit all the time to y'all.
No,
I,
listen.
I was gonna get there actually.
I got told.
all the
I got
time.
told I lived in a mansion. I got told.
But John, I'm not gonna lie,
stuff.
your house is big, bro. Not just
It's
the one you live
not a
in, but the
mansion.
one your parents had. I'm not gonna,
I know.
acres,
No,
brother.
this house I'm in now is bigger than my parents' house, but
Yeah.
that house is big. But that's not the point.
That had
Chris Rock had a joke, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, but pretty much he said he grew up. His parents did just well enough to grow up poor around white people, and that's kind of like my parents had things, but we like I couldn't join a football team because you got to
But-
pay for the equipment. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't
Look-
those things. Bills was paid.
look
I
at
had Walmart clothes every school year, so that was good. But I had clothes, you know what I'm saying. But we were still poor, just around rich white people. But
Hey,
my
John,
family in the city thought we was rich.
You know what's funny? This T-shirt is Target. It's funny. I got older just to buy T-shirts from Target. The irony.
Tarjay.
Wait, but that's
Irony.
really that is the irony of it, and that really goes to. It shows you really the ignorance, the lack of education, right? And our trip was like, damn, you live in the boonies. Like, do you know how big New York is?
Right, we ain't too far.
I don't know, because you can go a whole nother 8 hours and still be in New York.
Yeah, and there's still plenty of poor people upstate.
But
And out
right,
upstate.
and
Yeah.
meanwhile, you can go 8 hours south and you're in Washington D.C. Like,
Yeah. Insane.
and you've actually been there
Yeah.
probably for an hour after traffic. Like, people don't. It's a real lack of education that goes on.
Mhm.
When do we start changing the cycle? How do we start? Let's end it on that. How do we start changing the cycle?
Education, I would say, is once we don't have an excuse anymore. My father has an excuse. My mother has an excuse. I don't have an excuse not to tell my kids X, Y, and Z. Don't hate on the next man.
Mhm.
Don't worry about you know what I'm saying? We have the tools. We are the generation where everything is in our hands. Like my father used to try to make us, if we wanted to know something, he bought a Encyclopedia Britannica, all however many 50-something books, and he would tell us to go look that shit up. And we would have to go look it up, whatever the question was, because he ain't have the answer. That's his excuse. I don't have that same excuse anymore as he did. So I have to, all you can do is just teach the younger generation, because it ain't gonna be our generation. We're fucked, but we can make sure every other generation after us is not fucked. You get what I'm saying?
I think one of the ways we can go about making changes, kind of, we all can agree to this, that it starts with us, right? But we got to start, John, our generation is fucked, but if we start to learn how to love ourselves, because I think we all can agree here that majority of our generation doesn't know how to love ourselves first, right? So I think if we learn how to do that and then start teaching everybody else, like, all right, look, you got to love thyself first and then care about the next man, right? John, you said that, and maybe you were, didn't mean to say this, but you had mentioned that not caring about, or not, I guess it was not caring about the next man, right? Just, worry about yourself kind of thing. You mentioned it real quickly. But if we start to love ourselves first, then we can start, we can care about the next person, because if the next person is, in a fucked up situation, we can offer help to them. And in return, it's just going to be, a karma thing, right? I'm a big believer in karma. So what you put out is going to come back in. If you start helping the next man from a genuine loving place, like, look, man, I don't expect nothing back. Like, I'm just helping you out because I see you in a real tough spot. Let me give you a helping hand. It's just only going to come back. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just going to be a reciprocal thing. And then he or she's going to do it to the next person because they realize that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's kind of where we should
love thy neighbor, man. And love thy neighbor like you love yourself, right? Because
But
once you start loving other people like you love you, the world is fixed.
you gotta love yourself first.
John, I think John, you're right. John, what you said is right. You gotta love yourself. There's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of pain, man. You know,
A lot of it.
I just ended with this, and you know, obviously, thank you guys for having me. This has been cool. I'm a fan, as I said before, but I think most important thing we have to start doing is we have to heal. We have to each individually find out how we can heal ourselves and start loving ourselves. And then once we are able to fully heal and understand ourselves and love ourselves, I think the way we treat others and the we'll hold ourselves in higher regard and demand more from ourselves. And I think you'll see instant change outwardly. But once you fix inward, outward will definitely sort of, take flight.
Correct.
What you got, Fabe? Anything different?
You got to stand. It goes back to what I was saying before, and it's basically just very similar to what everybody else said, just a little bit of a spinoff. Fix you, and what I mean by fix you is become a better person. Because I hate to get spiritual or religious with it, but thou shalt not covet, right? If you have that in mind, you want to hate on the next person in your community because they got a better pair of sneakers than you, or they decided to move out the hood, or whatever it is. You should just wish the best for them. So there's a lot of stuff. You start healing yourself inside and start being a better person. Like you said, love thy neighbor. But there's a lot of ways to get to that. And I think the problem is that we have inherent stuff in us as human beings, because thoughts of jealousy, anger, happiness, these are all feelings that we have, but we got to keep them in check, because when they run rampant, they start affecting the person next to us in negative ways, sometimes positive ways, but we're too focused on the negative. And it's even worse in communities where we have less. So those demons come out of jealousy, hatred, coveting, envy, the second somebody gets something because you don't have it. And and it affects us even more when you're poor. So if we keep that in check and try to live our best life and live as good people and have some sort of moral code, and you start having those feelings like, nah, it's not the right way to be thinking, I got to uplift this person. You start doing that, eventually it'll all turn around. But that's some self-accountability shit. We can't point fingers. We got to go from within. Then once we fix that, then we can start saying, okay, well, you're trying to really mess with us, but guess what? I'm good here. And I think once you do that, that'll solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much have been hitting it on the head. There's nothing that you have said is wrong. Only thing I'll add, I feel like we have to change our priorities and our perspectives on stuff. Somebody touched on, not living in fear. When we start emphasizing the things that are truly important to lead to success, not glorifying the material. When we stop, like Fabian mentioned, blaming others for whatever varying reasons. Like, yeah, the world's fucked up. That's not going to change anytime soon, but we can put it on the path to change by trying to maintain our perspectives, have understanding, and really reprioritizing what we need individually and as a community to properly lift each other up. There's a lot of work that I think stems from everything that you four men have mentioned. That really it will be a culmination of things that really will ultimately lead to the proper growth, but it doesn't mean it's not attainable. It's completely within reach. So that's the only thing I'll add on that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate y'all tuning in to the Alpha 5 podcast. I'm Frank, aka PJ, here with John, Jonah, Fabian, and our special guest, Dougie Cash. It was great to have you, bro.
Thanks for having me,
man.
Word. Appreciate you coming through, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Absolutely.
remember,
We gotta do this again.
please tune in to all the boys I've loved, Cobra Kai, watch Sprinter, all on Netflix.
Cobra Kai season 1 and 2, August August next month. I don't know if they released the day almost.
They released the day yet.
I don't remember. But
Next month.
watch season 1 and 2 Cobra Kai
On Netflix, right?
On Netflix.
on
right?
Netflix. There we go.
On Netflix. On Netflix.
Yeah, shout out to John, Josh, and Hayden.
Boom. There you go.
Squad.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can catch us also on YouTube, Facebook. We on TikTok, Instagram, at Alpha 5 Podcasts. We'll
Just
talk to y'all
Google it, we
later. Yeah, we there. Later.
Yeah. Peace.